The late 1500s was an extremely superstitious time to be British. The focus on religion had created a great fusion between the reality we know and the supernatural that they believed in. Though this mostly materialised in witch hunts and ghost stories, today's topic covers the reports of the creature known as Black Shuck, which supposedly terrorised several churches in Suffolk during this time. Shuck is commonly believed to have been derived from the Old English form of devil. Black Shuck is believed to be a form of apparition, more commonly known as the Black Dog. For those who aren't aware, the Black Dog is a creature in British folklore associated with aspects of the supernatural, most particularly witchcraft, taking the form of a rather large hound. Descriptions vary on its appearance, some saying its coat was shaggy and curly, when others suggested that it was smooth and soft. However, the one universally agreed aspect of its physical appearance is its size being significantly bigger than the average dog, as well as its rather unusual eyes, witnesses suggesting that the creatures were red or fiery. It was a belief of the time that the appearance of a black dog would be a bad omen, for bad luck, bad weather, or at worst, death. In spite of their ominous presence, the majority of black dogs at these supposed sightings were considered harmless, with even some appearances being counted as good omens for the witnesses. However, reports of Black Shuck describe it as anything but harmless, with it gaining a reputation for mauling and even killing multiple people. It was described as a hellish monster due to these events, so this only begs the question, what really did happen? On the 4th of August 1577, Bungay was experiencing a storm unlike any other. During this time, many people's houses weren't made very strong, being built of wood and straw, meaning that instead of staying in their own homes, the villagers were taking shelter in the St. Mary's Church in Bungay, as its brickwork would protect them from any fires the storm might have caused. So as the townsfolk were settling in the church praying that the houses wouldn't catch on fire, the wide oak doors suddenly opened. Bursting through those doors was a large black hellhound. Making its way across the congregation, it sank its teeth into a man and mauled a young boy, both of whom eventually died. It was soon after that the steeple fell through the roof, although sources differ as to whether this was caused by the storm or the beast itself. It was soon after that the Black Dog made its exit and reappeared at the Holy Trinity Church of Blythburgh, causing similar chaos, but this time with one main difference. The creature is said to have left 4 scorch marks on the church's door, locally known as the Devil's Fingerprints, scorch marks which are there to this day. The way I see it, the fears surrounding Black Shuck, much like a lot of British folklore, are directly tied to the country's obsession with being devoutly Christian. Especially with the Witchcraft Act's creation in 1542, the Black Shuck sightings occurred just when witch hunting was growing to its peak in Britain, witchcraft being a practice heavily associated with Satanism at the time. It's clear that there was a general belief that Black Shuck and Satanism were directly linked. Considering that the majority of Britons were perfectly comfortable with accusing any old woman of being a devil worshipper, the idea that Satan might cause chaos on Earth in the form of a dog of all things probably didn't seem that crazy to them. This lines up with the Bible's animalistic depiction of Satan being described as a roaring lion looking for someone to devour, as well as taking the physical form of a snake in Genesis. Now, as much as I'd like to believe in the supernatural, I really think there is a more simple explanation for these attacks. If you're watching this video and you didn't think that these descriptions of attacks sounded very similar to those of wolves, then you might be surprised at just how much they resemble one another. Now if you're British, the idea of stray wolves roaming the UK sounds absolutely ridiculous to us nowadays, but the truth is not only have wolves existed in Great Britain for a long time, but they also went extinct far later than you might have expected. The last Scottish wolf is believed to have been killed in 1680. On top of this, the behaviour of Black Shuck closely resembles attacks from rabid wolves. In a 2002 study by the Norwegian Institute of Nature Research, in cooperation with the Large Carnivore Initiative for Europe, many of the described attacks have clear similarities. According to the study, the majority of attacks concern wolves with rabies. It seems rabies affects wolves far worse than it might for other animals, with the virus being the cause of what is referred to as the severe furious phase, capable of biting a large number of people in a single attack, explaining the large amount of deaths in both St. Mary's and Blythburgh. The report goes on to say that before post-exposure treatments for such attacks were more properly refined and developed, bites from rabid wolves were almost always fatal. The report further goes on to declare that the majority of registered attacks have been on children, much like the 1577 incident. However, what I find the most interesting about the report is that it states that in areas where such attacks have occurred, locals have regarded these events as being caused by an evil spirit. So, I feel at least relatively confident that this is what Black Shuck is. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a scientist, so there could be some massive flaw that I'm missing. I think the main fault in my theory is that St. Mary's Church in Bungay is almost a 5-hour walk from Holy Trinity Church in Blythburgh, meaning that considering the poor weather, it would be very unlikely for the creature to make it between the two churches. That is, unless that creature wasn't at Holy Trinity Church at all. You see, the St. Mary's Church event is documented fairly well, with Abraham Fleming's account in 1577, but the evidence for Blythburgh is a bit more vague. All that remains is this verse, and of course the devil's fingerprints left on the church. This verse tells us nothing concrete regarding the events, but what about the scorch marks on the church doors? Well, sometimes I feel the simplest answer is the most reasonable one. It's not entirely impossible that these were simply caused by a candle. I mean, it is a church, so it's not unreasonable that there be many lit candles present. This seems to be quite a popular assumption amongst many skeptics, with many saying that these marks were made on purpose. If I'm honest, I don't see why they can't simply be made accidentally. I suppose if you really want to get more tinfoil hat, then you could suggest that having irrefutable evidence of a demon might drive more people to your church, and so that might have been the intention. If I'm honest though, the idea of a pastor trying to burn down half his church to convince locals that there's a devil dog on the loose sounds pretty ridiculous to me. Overall, there's many different ways that you can interpret these events, but you definitely can't deny the impacts that such stories have had on British culture. The Black Shuck is mostly remembered today for its relevance in Bungay, with the Black Shuck festival taking place there every August, but it's grown so much further than its own hometown. Whether you grew up with Sherlock Holmes on the hunt for a man-eating dog or Harry Potter's run-ins with the Grim, it's clear that the beast has left its mark on much more than just church doors.